All right, in today's video, I'm gonna go over 5 creative transitions that you can use in your next filmmaking project. These 5 transitions I've been using a lot in my short form content recently, and they add a lot of dynamic movement and energy to your videos. I'm gonna break down exactly how I shot and edited each of these transitions, and I'll just break them down simply so that you can understand the flow of it, and then experiment and try out these different techniques with your own style. If you have any questions on any of these transitions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Let's begin. Okay, so this first transition is the shot, and the shot is a very fun dynamic transition where basically we're having your subject act like they're shooting the camera, and the camera then blasts into 3 or 4 different scenes. And this basically, all it is just a fancy speed ramp technique. In this first clip, basically I'm just using a gimbal and I'm walking up to Shin as he reaches out his hand as if he's about to shoot the camera. And if you'll notice, I'm just doing a slow push-in movement with my gimbal. I'm just slowly pushing in, and as he reaches his hand out, I'm slowly pulling back. And then as soon as he lifts his arm, I'm slowly walking back with my gimbal. The key here is that throughout this entire movement of this first scene here, you wanna make sure that Shin, or your subject, is somewhat centered, at least along this middle plane here. That makes everything else seem a lot smoother. Then you can go ahead and make this really interesting. What I've done is I've actually added a dolly zoom, and so right here, if you notice, the background seems to shift and almost have like this vertigo effect. That's because I started the clip out at 200% zoomed in, and then as I stepped closer to him, I went back to 100%. So basically, as you walk towards your subject and zoom out, you get this cool dolly effect, and that's how I achieved this. The other thing that I added to this was, if you'll notice here, the camera sort of tracks Shin's hands. I've just done that manually through keyframing. It's super easy to keyframe the position and sort of track his hand as if he's charging up this gun. The other thing I've done is right before he shoots, I've actually done a quick zoom. I've used the transform effect, and I've just zoomed in really quickly to Shin's hand here, right before we get into the speed ramp effect. And speed ramping is really simple. You just basically want to increase your speed from 100% to, let's say, like 1,000% over a few frames. So if we just go through this really slowly, if you remember, I walked backwards, I start my speed ramp, and I'm speed ramping into this next scene here, which is basically all it is just me walking past Shin very slowly. If you'll notice here, I've then gone ahead and recorded a few of these movements of the same motion. I basically just walk past Shin in a few different locations, all the while maintaining him somewhat centered throughout the frame. And I'm just walking past him in the same movement. And then when you go ahead and speed ramp this over a few frames, you get this really cool, fun transition. And then once you add a little bit of sound design, this is where everything comes together. Just real quickly, I've got a riser and a few different whooshes and a hit, as well as a deep impact right as we get close to the actual explosion or the fake shot. And then as we go through each speed ramp, you notice here, I just have a different whoosh for each speed ramp. And that helps bring everything together. In the intro, I often like to add a deep impact and a deep reverb just to start the whole transition. Obviously, we have that fake gun cocking sound, and that's that transition. All right, so transition number 2 is a really popular, fun rotoscoping transition. And I've actually done a full tutorial on this on my channel, but real quickly, just to talk about this briefly, this is an easy transition to incorporate into any sort of material or product. In this case, I'm having Cody just toss his sunglasses, and it comes together in 3 easy clips. So for this first clip, we're just gonna have your subject act like they're tossing something to the right. And in this case, I'm just hand holding this camera and I'm just following Cody's movement. As soon as he acts like he's about to toss the sunglasses, I'm just gonna slowly whip my camera to the right. And that's the first movement. The second scene is really simple. I just had some dental floss. You can use fishing wire, you can use literally anything that's kind of like thin and somewhat see-through. And basically what I've done is I've just dangled it in front of my camera like this and just had it revolve a few times. So basically what this does is this allows you to get fake floating, rotating clip. And I'll show you exactly how we do this next. The final scene is Cody already has the sunglasses in his hands, and he's basically just gonna act like he's catching the sunglasses, and we're gonna merge these all together. And so the next thing you're gonna wanna do is basically rotoscope, bring this into either Davinci Resolve or After Effects, and you can just rotoscope out your sunglasses. Rotoscoping seems really complicated, but it's pretty simple. You could do this even in CapCut. You could do this. There are a few different AI softwares online that you could do this. And basically you just want to rotoscope out your sunglasses, and then we're gonna re-add the background clean plate that we shot earlier. Basically, I just zoomed in and I just keyframed it moving from right to left to make it seem like these sunglasses are moving through the air. So those are the 3 clips. And basically what you wanna do now is, again, you're just gonna speed ramp these clips together. So you're gonna speed ramp this first piece here into this movement scene of the sunglasses sort of floating in the air. And then we're gonna slowly speed ramp this in to that fake catch. And that's it. It's actually that simple. If you watch it together, if you could break it down, it actually doesn't seem as clean as it seems in the actual clip. And that's just because if you have speed ramping done at the right timing, it doesn't even have to be perfect clips. It can all merge together really well. And if we add the sound effects, for this transition, what's spicing up everything is this metallic riser right here. This metallic riser really gives a sense of like urgency, or it makes you feel almost like anxious before the transition. And the other thing I've added that really heightens this up is this F-tone high pitch ringing sound that I've added some studio reverb to. This is what gives it that high pitched sound right after the toss. And that gives it sort of like that matrix feeling. And then we have a few different whooshes that I've just layered together, finally, to bring this whole catch together. Super simple. Before we hop into transition number 3, let me give a quick shout out to the platform that makes creating these sort of transitions super easy, Motion Array. I've been utilizing Motion Array for years, mainly with their presets, motion graphics, sound effects. They've really got a large variety of assets that help filmmakers of all levels. It's just a great resource. For a variety of transitions that I've been showcasing in this video, I've been utilizing a lot of presets and plugins provided by Motion Array. Whether you're using Adobe Premiere Pro, After Effects, Davinci Resolve, if you need titles, transitions, overlays, tools and effects, as well as motion graphics, there's plenty to really elevate your transitions and your overall video projects. You can download as many video assets as you want and use them in as many projects as you'd like. Nearly all the creative assets are completely cleared for commercial use, and it's all available in one subscription. Basically a one-stop shop to help elevate the visuals of your next film. They've also got music, sound effects, an amazing AI voiceover feature that comes in really handy. I've been using them for a really long time. They're a great resource, and it's just a great place to get some assets to help level up your filmmaking projects. Click the link in the description for more information, and thank you to Motion Array for sponsoring this video. Moving along to transition number 3, the Gaussian splatting technique. Now this also looks and seems a little bit difficult, but it's actually really simple. All you need for this particular transition is a special app called Polycam. You don't necessarily need this specific app. There are other apps that allow you to do LiDAR scanning and Gaussian splatting. Basically, this technique is you're taking multiple photos of a scene, and this then aggregates together and creates a 3D model of the area that you're actually shooting. So in order to set up this transition, you need a push-in shot. And so here I have Peace just slowly pushing in to my shoe, and that gives us that first scene of just kind of like dolling into the actual shoe. And I want it to transition right as I go to tie my shoes. Once you have this clip, next you're gonna wanna go ahead and shoot this Gaussian splat, or this 3D scene. And this is really simple actually. All you need to do is just pull out your camera, and on your iPhone, literally just do a few different revolutions around your object. And so as you see here, I just have Peace use his iPhone and do a few different revolutions, low, medium, high. The more time that you spend actually scanning your environment, the more detailed the scan is. This scan, I think it took us like 30 seconds max, and we just did a couple different revolutions and added it to the cloud and let the app do its thing, and it created this really cool 3D splat. And the splat looks something like this. It's really interesting. What you can then go ahead and do is bring this into After Effects, and in After Effects there is a plugin called Gaussian Splatting that you do need to download in order to do this effect. You can actually just screen record the Gaussian Splat from their website if you really want to do it that way for free. But if you download this Gaussian Splat plugin, it allows you to then keyframe the movement around your actual 3D frame. So in this case, I just had the camera basically, I don't know if you ever used After Effects before, but you can create like cameras and movements. You can basically animate the camera to rotate around the shoe, and that's what I've done here. Another cool thing about this particular plugin is you can keyframe the actual particles to appear over time. And so basically what I did was I just keyframed the particles to begin at the beginning of the resolution, and then I've just had them expand throughout my 3D scene. And the only other thing I've done is I've actually speed ramped that transition. So right here, once you have those two scenes, all you need to do is just add a little bit of sound design magic and a camera shake preset that I got from Motion Array, and that'll bring everything together. Along with, I've actually added right here a lumetri color. I basically just keyframed a light exposure. So if you'll notice, quick flash right here, that's just my exposure keyframing, just adding a little bit of flash, a little bit more interest to the actual transition. And then finally, once you bring everything together and you add a little sound design, again, we've got multiple different risers. I've got 3 different whooshes. Sound design is all about just layering different sounds, just trying to figure out what works. I've got a camera flash, also a little bit of static electricity, and that brings it together to sound something like this. Altogether, pretty fun and easy transition. This next transition is a fun interactive transition that you can do with any lens, any camera. It works better with wide lenses. And so for this one, I've actually used a regular 24mm lens for the initial walk-up to Enzo. And then when he catches the camera, I've switched to a fisheye lens. For the initial walk-up, all you basically need to do is just make sure that Enzo or your subject is somewhat centered and you end up with his hand catch centered to a degree. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to walk basically all the way up to him actually catching the camera. The key here is you just want to keep him along this center plane here and walk pretty continuously at a constant speed. The second catch motion is just a completely separate clip. And if you notice here, Enzo's holding the camera and he's just gonna act like he's catching the camera. And that's it. Those are the 2 clips. And basically, if you pair these together with a speed ramp and some sound design, you get something like that. It's really simple. If you notice, if we just slow this down here, we're gonna cut between the 2 clips right there. It's not even perfect, but because of the speed ramping, it seems like he's actually catching the camera. And if we watch this in real time here, it's really simple. What I've actually done is I've actually slowed down slightly right as he raises his arm, and then I've sped up. And that's something I've done often with speed ramping is if you actually slow down at 50% before you increase your speed to like 1,000 or whatever, it actually helps build that suspense, and pairing that with sound design makes it really interesting to watch. Here's another example of Peace and I doing the same effect, this time on an iPhone. First, we've used the 1x camera, and then for the second clip, we've actually used the 0.5 camera. And if you notice, again, there's a slight slowdown right here as I raise my arm, and then it just speed ramps into me catching the camera. And so these 3 clips, basically the first one is Peace, not even on a gimbal. He's just walking all the way up to my hand like this. And the second clip is just me holding the camera like this and just acting like I'm catching the camera. Finally, the drop transition. And this transition I've done recently with Enzo. It's a really fun transition where basically we're going from above ground to underground. And this is basically a combination of masking and speed ramping. For this transition, you're gonna need a gimbal. And basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna start with your subject and you're basically just gonna lower your camera as far as possible. If you'll notice, I'm actually filming this on stairs, and that is on purpose because if you film on stairs, you have more of a location to kind of like get as low as possible. And I basically wanted to use these stairs as half of the mask for the full transition. And so basically if you go ahead and drop your camera slowly like this, you'll end up with something like this, where it's not even perfect. And obviously he's not even fully masked out, but that's okay because we'll fix that later in the edit. The second clip, very similarly, I found this exit or this sign that announces trains at the actual underground, and I've used this as my secondary mask for the introduction into this scene. I've just timed it so the train passes him right as we lower. Now, if you notice, all you need to do is basically just speed ramp in between these 2 clips. One extra thing I've done to help smoothen this transition out is I've actually keyframed the first clip to move upwards, and I've actually added sort of a crop feather to clean up that edge there. And in the second clip, I've slowly introduced that clip moving upwards as well. And so by doing this together and adding a bit of feathering in between the 2 clips, you get this not super noticeable transition here. And if you notice, it's not even perfect, but if you go ahead and add a speed ramp you cannot tell the difference between kind of like these. Even if you look at it at a slower pace, you really can't tell that there's much of a harsh edge between these two clips. And because you're moving the camera as well as moving the actual frames digitally, it gives it this cool parallax effect and really sells the transition as if it's dropping with an elevator. And then if you add some sound design, and basically I've just added here, I've added some like birds chirping, like outdoor nature sounds, along with some whooshes and risers. And then I've changed it to this underground train sound. And those little touches help sell the overall transition. So yeah, that was 5 transitions that you could use in your next creative project. These are all just frameworks that you can use. Mostly, if you notice, a lot of speed ramping, a lot of match cutting, and a lot of sound design to help sell your overall effects. If you have any questions on any of these transitions or anything in general, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you have any requests, again, leave them in the comments below. And if you have any questions on perhaps my PowerGrades, my LUTs, any of my personal assets, feel free to check out my store. It'll be linked down in the description. Thanks again for watching till the very end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.